Picture the vast, deep blue expanse of the Caribbean Sea. Now, imagine breaking through the clouds to reveal two tiny emerald green volcanic peaks rising dramatically from the water, separated by a narrow 2-mile channel. This is St. Kitts and Nevis. It's a place of absolutely breathtaking natural beauty, but it also served as the fiercely contested stage where the modern Atlantic world was essentially forged. In this explainer, we're diving into a powerful story. It's a story of blood, of sugar, and ultimately of a profound and inspiring rebirth.
To really wrap your head around this nation, you first have to understand its staggeringly small scale. We're talking about just 261 square kilometers. That's a mere 101 square miles. It holds the title of the smallest sovereign state in the entire Western Hemisphere, serving as home to roughly 48,000 people. But do not let this tiny footprint fool you. The historical impact of these two islands is colossal. They cast a shadow that literally shaped global empires.
So, it really begs the question, how on earth did these two tiny volcanic islands become the fiercely contested epicenter of European empire building? Because just beneath the lush, tranquil rainforests and the serene mists swirling around Nevis Peak lies a really striking contrast. Beneath that tropical serenity are the looming, turbulent shadows of a brutal colonial past. To understand how they became the ultimate prize of Europe, we have to look back at who was actually here first.
Long before European galleons ever appeared on the horizon, these islands were settled by the seafaring Kalinago people, right around 1300 CE. And their original names for the islands reflected a deep, beautiful harmony with the environment. The larger island was called Liamuga, which translates to fertile land. It's a perfect description for the rich, volcanic soils of those sweeping rainforests. The smaller island to the south was Wali, meaning land of beautiful waters, a nod to the pristine shores surrounding the cloud-wreathed peak. It was a peaceful existence, but that serene harmony was about to be violently interrupted.
Christopher Columbus might have sighted the islands way back in 1493, but the true turning point for this region came in the 1620s. St. Kitts wasn't just a random island on a map. In 1623, it became the very first British Caribbean colony, and just 2 years later, the French established their first colony there as well. Because it served as the strategic launchpad to settle surrounding islands like Antigua, Martinique, and Guadeloupe, St. Kitts actually earned a pretty monumental title. It became known as the Mother Colony of the West Indies. Now, this sudden influx of European settlers spelled immediate disaster for the native Kalinago. After 3 years of trying to resist colonial exploitation, the English and French, who were normally bitter rivals, actually joined forces in 1626. In a preemptive strike, they perpetrated a horrific massacre at a site that is literally still known today as Bloody Point. Almost overnight, the islands were transformed into a fortress and a battlefield. Over the next century and a half, massive empires fought relentlessly over these fertile lands, a tug of war that didn't end until the British secured total control in 1783.
You might be wondering, why were these massive global empires fighting so hard for such tiny islands? Well, it comes down to one word: sugar. And the immense wealth that was generated by the brutal system of imported African slave labor. By the close of the 1700s, St. Kitts had actually become the richest British Crown colony per capita in the entire Caribbean. This incredibly dark era fueled immense wealth for European planters right up until the abolition of slavery. When emancipation finally arrived in 1834, freedom was granted to nearly 20,000 enslaved people on St. Kitts and almost 9,000 on Nevis. And that moment set the demographic reality of the islands forever.
Fast forward to the dawn of the 20th century, and the descendants of those freed workers began actively demanding their own rights. Widespread economic hardship sparked a really powerful labor movement. And this brings us to a winding, often painful path toward actual self-rule. In 1967, the islands, which were then a 3-island union of St. Kitts, Nevis, and Anguilla, achieved full internal autonomy. But as we know, political unions can be fragile. Residents of Anguilla felt heavily dominated by St. Kitts, and that led to intense friction. Anguilla rebelled and eventually separated completely by 1980, choosing to remain a British overseas territory. Finally, on September 19, 1983, the Twin Island Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis achieved full official independence. But independence didn't magically erase all internal contrasts. The relationship between the two remaining islands remained incredibly complex. Nevis, being the smaller of the two, often felt marginalized within the Federation. This simmering discontent culminated in a highly dramatic moment in 1998.
An astonishing 62% of Nevisians actually voted to secede from St. Kitts and form their own separate nation. It was a massive, undeniable statement of independence. But because the Constitution requires a strict two-thirds majority, or 66.6%, the referendum narrowly failed. The Twin Island Federation held together, but the message of a distinct Nevisian identity was absolutely clear.
As the newly independent nation approached the 21st century, it faced a massive existential crisis. The global sugar market had entirely collapsed. The industry that had literally built the islands, fueled centuries of conflict, and employed generations of families was bleeding money. It was kept alive only by really heavy government subsidies. And, to make matters worse, devastating natural disasters like Hurricane Georges swept through and caused hundreds of millions of dollars in damage. All of this forces a profound question. How does a nation outgrow a centuries-old industry? How do you completely reinvent an economy that has known practically nothing but sugar for almost 400 years?
Finding the answer required a truly monumental pivot. In 2005, the government made the agonizing but necessary decision to close the state-owned sugar industry forever. The sugarcane fields went totally quiet. In its place, the nation decided to lean heavily into its incredible natural beauty, sparking a huge rise in ecotourism. But perhaps their most pioneering strategy was financial. By revamping their 1984 Citizenship by Investment program, which is actually the oldest of its kind in the world, they allowed foreign investors to attain citizenship by contributing directly to the nation's sustainable development. It was a controversial move for sure, but it proved to be a brilliant economic lifeline.
And you know what? The strategy worked, breathing entirely new life into the islands. Just look at the shift between 2007 and 2009. Tourist arrivals surged dramatically, seeing a nearly 40% increase in just 2 years. The physical landscape of the islands was totally reborn. Deepwater cruise ports began welcoming massive ships from all over the world. Historic strongholds, like the imposing Brimstone Hill, were transformed into high-definition natural parks. And those old sugar train tracks? They were brilliantly repurposed into the St. Kitts Scenic Railway, taking visitors on breathtaking coastal tours through the island's history. But if you look past the economic statistics and the tourist brochures, the true core of this nation is its people. The national motto of St. Kitts and Nevis is "Country above self." It's an incredibly powerful cultural anchor for a population that has endured colonization, slavery, devastating natural disasters, and the total collapse of their foundational industry. It speaks to a deep collective resilience. It's a pulsating energy that prioritizes the health and vibrancy of the community over the individual. It is, without a doubt, the beating heart of modern Kittsian and Nevisian life. That vibrant soul is something you can see and feel on full display year-round. With a population that is 92.5% Afro-Caribbean, the culture of the islands is a dynamic, living tapestry of music, dance, and history. In December, the streets just erupt with energy for the St. Kitts Carnival, while the summer months bring the famous Nevis Culturama. The historical footprint here is still profound as well. In fact, it was right here on Nevis that American founding father Alexander Hamilton was born. And this tiny nation continues to punch way above its weight class today, perhaps best exemplified when Canadian sprinter Kim Collins absolutely shocked the world by taking home gold at the 2003 World Championships. So St. Kitts and Nevis is clearly so much more than just a gorgeous postcard destination. It's a nation defined by enduring resilience. It is a place that looked back at its dark, bloody past, outgrew the bitter legacy of sugar, and deliberately carved out a thriving, beautiful modern reality. From the fertile volcanic slopes of Liamwiga to the majestic, cloud-covered peak of Wally, they have shown the world exactly how a nation can adapt and reinvent itself. So the next time you're looking at a map of the Caribbean, ask yourself, what other tiny islands hold such incredible, world-changing stories just waiting to be explored?